In this lecture, we are going to allow the text of our block to be editable. Clients should be able to modify the block with custom text. At the moment, our block will always render the same text. Before getting started, let's create a page for experimenting with our blocks. I always recommend creating a page dedicated to experimenting with various blocks. I still have the page from the previous lecture opened. I'm going to delete the fancy header block from the page. Next, I'll add a custom title to the page and publish it. For the rest of this course, we are going to be using this page for adding custom blocks during development. This is to prevent disruption from the rest of our theme. We can begin to make our block editable. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to a component called RichText. WordPress has dozens of components. Normally, we would need to write the logic ourselves. Luckily, WordPress allows us to borrow its components for creating our own blocks. The RichText component is an example. This component will allow clients to edit the text of an element directly from the browser. On this page, we are provided a list of properties or attributes that can be applied to this component. Understanding how to read this page is very important. It'll help you customize a component. Let's go through an example together. Properties are listed under the Properties section. The documentation will provide the name of the property followed by the data type. Under each property, a description is given for more information. Not all properties are required. Some are optional. There's one last piece of crucial information before using components. Components can be found under various packages. They're not centralized into one package. Before using a component, you should verify the component's location by viewing its package. At the top of the page, we'll be given a long list of folders. The folder that matters is the one after the packages folder. According to the repository, this component can be found under the block editor package. Let's try using this component. In your editor, open the index.js file. At the top of the file, let's import the RichText component from the block editor package. The format for a package is the @WordPress alias, followed by the package's name. All WordPress packages are found under this namespace. Next, let's replace the paragraph element with the RichText component. Afterward, let's configure the component by adding two properties. Firstly, we can configure the tag that gets generated by this component by adding a property called tagName. The value for this property can be the name of the tag. By default, this component will wrap your text with a div tag. I think it would be appropriate to change the tag to h2. After all, our block will generate a header. Next, let's add a property called placeholder. The placeholder property will display placeholder text if the component is empty. You can think of it as similar to the placeholder attribute for the input element. Typically, you may be tempted to add a plain string. However, we should translate our text. At the top of the file, let's import a function called double underscore from the WordPress/i18n package. The i18n package is the official package that exports translation functions. By default, the text inside the block.json file is translated. However, the text inside a script file is not. We must manually tell WordPress what pieces of text are translatable. This is where the double underscore function comes into play. This function will search for a translation inside our theme or plugin. If it finds a translation, the translation is returned. Otherwise, the original text will be returned. Let's try using this function by setting the placeholder property to the double underscore function. Remember to set the value to curly brackets. Otherwise, an expression will not work. We won't be able to use JavaScript from within JSX. There are two arguments. The first argument is the text to translate. Let's pass in the following value, Enter heading. The second argument is a text domain. Our text domain is called Udemy Plus. The text domain is extremely important. It's possible that plugins or themes may have translations for the same piece of text. How does WordPress decide which translation to use? It checks the text domain passed into the function. By using the text domain, it'll prioritize our plugin's translations over other translations. As of now, we don't have a translation available for our plugin. Therefore, WordPress will return the original text. Time to test our code. In the browser, refresh the experimental page. You may need to add the fancy header block to the page. If the block throws an error, you may need to remove it and re-add it. It's common to re-add blocks during development. Unfortunately, Gutenberg is not able to keep track of changes. Once you've added the fancy header block to the page, you should see something similar to what I see. The placeholder text gets rendered in the block. We can click on the block to start adding text. As we do so, the placeholder gets replaced with our text. With a few lines of code, we were able to achieve this behavior. In the next lecture, let's try storing the text written by the user.